Hi, my name's Jesse with Thumper Fab. Today we're going to talk about installing your Thumper Fab half doors on your Can-Am Defender. Step one is going to be to remove your nets, your sidebars, and your side plastics. To take off your net, just unclip it and remove the T20 Torx bolts. Then we'll take your T30 Torx and remove all the bolts holding the nets to the body cab. Now you can repeat the same steps for the rear and remove the net. In the rear, you'll need to save the hardware, the spacers, and the bolts to use later. Now it's time to remove the side plastic. There are 5 T30 bolts that need to be removed. In the rear, you have 2 push pins you'll have to remove and 1 T30 bolt. Now you can remove the hidden bolt, the T30 for your net. Now you can take your T30 and remove your 6mm bolts holding your factory grab bar on, and there's 2 10mm at the bottom. To make this easier, you can remove your back seat back. Now we're going to remove only the top bolt. The new bolt will face going the opposite direction. Before you remove your bottom bolt, you want to insert your new bolt from the outside in, place your spacer on the bolt, and start your nut. Now you want to tighten your new bolt and then remove your lower bolt. Now that your bolt is removed, you can put your new bolt in the bottom from the outside in. Then place your spacer over the bolt and remove your top nut. Now that you've done the front, you can go ahead and start and do the same thing on the back. Now it's time to prep all your hinges. You have 2 hinges, you got uppers and lowers. The way to tell the difference is the upper has an extra hole hanging off the end for your rubber bump stopper. Now you want to take your bronze bushings and put them in your hinges. Now we want to take our hinge mount bracket and our hinge and put them together. You'll start by sticking the hinge through the back of the hole and then installing your 5/16 bolt. For your upper hinge, you'll have to install the rubber stopper. To put your stopper in, you insert it into the hole, start your nut on the back, tighten it up. Now that you have your rubber stopper installed on your hinge, you can install your hinge into your hinge mount bracket. Now that you have both your bolts in, you can tighten up your nuts. Be sure not to over tighten them, as it will cause binding if it's over tightened. Now we're ready to install our hinge mount bracket. Just simply slide it over the top of your spacers. Now you can take your long spacer and your 6mm bolt and put it between your window net bracket. Now we're going to take our upper hinge mount bracket brace and install on the top of the hinge mount bracket. Now you want to take your M6 bolt that comes with your kit and put in the top of your upper hinge mount brace. Now we're going to take our trim and put it around all the way around the bottom edge of the door, all the way up to here. Now it's time to install the trim on your door. Now you'll take your medium trim and put over the double walled section in the middle. Now it's time to take your small trim and line the outside of the door. Now that you have all the trim on your door, it's time to put it on. All you have to do is slide your hinges into the door. Now you can take your 8mm by 20 bolts and put in the 4 door holes. Now that all your bolts are started, we can go ahead and tighten your upper bracket and your lower bracket. Now that you've tightened all the bolts on your hinge, it's time to trim your plastic to fit. Now we're going to have to trim out this cutout area for the rear hinge bracket. Now you want to take your knife and just cut out along the line. Now that you cut out your hole, you'll need to drill this hole out and notch this plastic. Now we'll take your die grinder or Dremel tool and open up the hole to the pre-marked area. Now you want to mark from the outside of your hole and go down as shown. Now that you got your plastic trimmed, you can go ahead and install it on your bike loosely. Now we're going to take your rear mount bracket and insert it into the hole you cut in the plastic and start the 2 bolts on the inside. Now you can go ahead and put your 3 bolts in the front. Now you want to tighten your 2 rear bolts first and then your 3 side bolts. Now you can install your striker pin bracket. Just slide it in the hole and start your button head bolts. Now you want to take your door latch. There's a driver and a passenger side door latch. You'll need to put your door latch ball onto the lever using your 6mm stainless bolts. The easy way to tell the difference in the latches is the passenger side has a red spring with a black spring and the driver's side has a clear spring with a green spring. Now to put your door latch on your door, you'll take your 1/4 button head bolts and your 6mm washers. Now we can take your Thumper Fab accent panel and install the 3 holes on the front of the door using the supplied hardware. Using your 3/8-32 bolts and nuts, you can tighten with a 3/32 Allen head and a 5/16 wrench. Now you can install your plastic finishing cap. Okay, to start the rear, you'll basically take the same steps as the front. You'll install your rubber grommet into your upper hinge, install your upper hinge into the hinge mount bracket, and then your lower hinge into the hinge mount bracket. Now that you have your hinge mount brackets installed, you can tighten your bolts. Careful not to over tighten them, as it will be hard to open. Before you install your hinge, and then you make sure that you have your 2 spacers on your roll cage bolts. Now we can install your hinge mount bracket onto the frame, sliding over the 2 bolts. Start your nuts. Now you can install your long spacer and your 6mm bolt. Now we can install your 2 8mm bolts in your upper hinge brace. Now you can install your 6mm bolt. Now it's time to install your trim on your rear door. Just do the same thing you did on the front. On the rear door, you only have 1 piece of the side bulb that goes on the very front of the door. Now you want to install your door onto the hinges. Stick your 8mm bolts onto your door hinges. Now with your door closed, you want to tighten all of your bolts with your 13mm. Now it's time to trim your rear plastic. You'll follow the same procedure for the hole. We'll drill the hole out, cut the outline of the hole out, and trim your plastic. Now I have marked the area to be cut, and we will just cut our lines. Now we can install your plastic behind your hinge. Now it's time to install your rear mount bracket. The Can-Am chassis are powder coated from the factory. You may have to clean the powder coat out of the threads. Now you can install your 8mm screws using a 13mm wrench. Now you can tighten your rear mount bracket bolts. Now it's time to install your rear striker bracket. You will use the spacers and bolts that you saved from this assembly earlier. Stick them in the bracket like so. Stick them back into the same holes. Now you can install your 2 8mm bolts with a 13mm socket. Now you can install your doorknob with a 10mm wrench to your latch. You can then put your latch on with your 1/4 bolt with a 5/32 Allen head. Now that you got your doors installed, we'll talk about adjustments. There's all kind of adjustments built into the doors. You can adjust your latch, you can adjust your striker plate, you can adjust it at your hinges, but it also may require loosening your entire hinge mount bracket to get the final adjustment you need for them to shut smoothly.